Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric and Tour de Fleece 2023. I have my Kromsky minstrel here with me today because I took a sneak peek at the topic and I knew that it would be a little bit easier because of its smaller size, a little bit easier for me to show and share today's topic with. Today's topic is beyond the spindle and the wheel. So these are the tools of the craft in addition to the spinning wheel and the spindle that we use. And I thought this would be a wonderful topic to cover. I know we've already talked about a couple of the tools and other videos, but we'll go over a few more of them. And I'm just going to dive in and say I'm using my Kromsky minstrel. I have a spinning project that I have been, there's the different little row logs. This is a spinning project I've been taking with me when I go to my local yarn store, and I wasn't able to make it last week, so I'm a little behind on spinning this fiber. So I thought that this would be a good good spinning project because, oh yes, because I did finish the green I was spinning yesterday. And I managed to get it all on the bobbin. It's a little on the full side. And you can see how some of it dyed really dark. Other pieces were lighter. It'll be very interesting to see how that plies up. So I finished that green. And rather than starting another project on my symphony, I figured I'd bring this smaller wheel because it takes up a little less space in front of the camera and allows me a little more movement as I show you some of these other tools of the trade. Right off the bat, I'm going to share with you something that's actually a new item in my arsenal. When I bought this wheel, I did not buy with it the attachment that the distaff. My husband was nice enough to make me one. And rather than trying to match it to the wood tone, he made me one. You can see the iridescent paint on it. And so this is the distaff. This is the bar that's holding the distaff away from the wheel. This is meant to be used with flax, the spinning of flax. However, the other day I actually saw someone using it with wool, and it works. So a distaff, this is a distaff on a wheel. It is commonly used when spinning flax, but you can also get distaffs to hold your flax and wool in some cases for the spindle. It's basically a way to contain, in the case of the flax, the long fibers so that you can draft them off, keep them controlled because they're very long, and it avoids the getting tangled up aspect. So I hope I have a kitty that's over playing with its toy, and so far it never shows up, but I can hear a lot of playing going on in the other room. So this is the distaff. I do not need it for today. I just wanted to share it with you. It is something that is useful when we're trying to spin something like flax. And I'm pretty pleased. It's lovely that I have a husband who is so talented and can take a look at a picture and make me the items that I need. So let me see if I can set that aside there. That's probably a safe enough place. And so we've talked about the distaff. I think the next item that I think before I start pulling out some of the other items I have here, I'll spin for just a minute and I'll talk about some of the items that I've already talked about and share some photos. I have talked about the ways that we prepare our fiber. We have combs, we have carders, and we also have, in the family of combs, we have something that is called a hackle. And a hackle can be used to help comb a fiber. A hackle can also be used to help when in the process of processing your flax. It can be used to split the fibers. Not necessarily the same hackle. Sometimes I think I've seen them where the teeth are spread out further. But a hackle is basically a board with a bunch of scary teeth sticking up from it. And I've used my hackle to blend fiber. I also have a blending board, which is a large piece of carding cloth attached to a board. And you can use that to blend your fiber. You can use that to take your prepared fiber and turn it into rolled up little logs of fiber, faux logs or puni. And yeah, so you have cards, you have hackles and combs, you have blending boards, and of course you have a drum carder. And I was not going to drag out my drum carder to show you. I'm not sure I have a picture, but that one's a pretty easy one to do a search for. So my the drum carder I have is a mini drum carder. It is only half the width of some of the standard hand crank or even little motorized ones. It does a bat that's probably 6 inches wide. And so it's a little bit smaller. Space-wise, the smaller tools are useful, but also the energy that is needed is less. A lot of them, you can get drum carders and such that are motorized. I have not done so. So I managed to buy mine. Mine was one that I was able to buy secondhand. The person was moving towards having a motorized, a little bit of an adjustment to the one, even the non-motorized one. There were some changes that were being made, some improvements, and so I was able to buy my drum carder at a discount. So those are types of things, but those are tools that can be a little pricey. And there are some, of course, you can make your own blending boards. You purchase the cloth, and the cloth can be, it's not exactly inexpensive, but there are ways to process your fiber if you're on a bit of a budget. And so I've seen a lot of new clips are out there to hold your twist in place. This is just a little tiny clip that you get for, in the quilting world, we use them sewing. And I'm just clipping it to my leather right now today. So, because when I got this wheel put together, when I got this wheel prepped to be able to take places, I removed the Scotch tension on it, and a few of the other things. And moving the knob here that had turned the Scotch tension on, that's where I always wrapped. That's where I always wrapped my fiber so it wouldn't untwist and be pulled back through the orifice. So in the interim, I just found that little clip. So tools that you can use if you're on a budget and you're doing small production, small prepping, you can go to the pet supply store and get a slicker brush, and these come in different sizes, and combs. So I'm going to start with the comb, because while you're not going to get the same effect necessarily as the true wool combs, you can certainly comb the tips of your fiber, and by doing so, I have removed some of the manky tips. I can smooth out the fiber, I can turn it around, I can do the same thing to the cut end, and it's pulling off any of the little second cuts, the manky tips. It's now ready to spin. And if I bring that up close, you might see all the little fuzzies. And that is the waist. So it's slower, definitely safer than the larger combs. The same thing goes with the slicker. You can take some of the fiber and You can just run it through like that. And now all of a sudden, the manky tips, because their tips on this it's a very fine fleece and the tips are just a little bit brittle and need to be removed. And I can just do that. And now I've cleaned the tips and the cut end, and I have locks ready to spin. So, and no, you don't need over there. You don't need over there. No, you don't. Do you want to see this? I'm going to give this, put that on the floor and see if I can get the cat to leave this alone and go over there. We don't want anything else falling down. And I have both of them right here. They're my constant companions when I'm recording. So just using the slicker brush, just using the comb, I have some cleaned, prepared fleece. Can be something as simple as that. And I just realized I wanted to bring something and I left it in the other room. I will be right back to show you the next tool. Okay, I've returned, and what I've returned with is a ball of yarn. It's a center pull ball. I can pull from the center. And the reason that I went and I grabbed this is because the next tool falls in the category of winding tools. And it looks like just a stick. It is not a drop spindle. It is a winding tool. And the modern version is the ball winder. And if you notice that the way the ball winder, it wobbles, that wobble helps wind it into kind of a woven looking pattern as it goes on. So we have a ball winder. But if you don't have space for one of these, or you find them cost prohibitive, this is one my husband, this is called I'm going to pronounce it wrong, no spin. Okay. I will put the word up here. And this is one my husband made for me. I suspect that you could use a dowel. But the objective of this, the way this is used, if I'm just going to go ahead and wrap the end of my yarn down here around the bottom. And then, and forgive me, if you're someone who is using a drop spindle, you are much more probably comfortable going back and forth. There we go. I'm starting to get it. The objective is to go up and down to get kind of a cross. A little bit of a cross section going. There we go. It's easy. This is not something I use very often, so the rhythm isn't there. But there we go. I have a bit more of the ribbon, but you want to go up and down, creating a cross pattern in the center, because that's going to hold the ball together when you pull it off this ball winder. So if you are a drop spindler, you are very much aware of what I am doing here. You're trying to wrap it on in a way that makes it so that when you pull it off, it's going to hold together. Now, when I pull that off, go ahead and unattach it from there. I basically have a center pull ball. See? And it's a fancy dowel. Okay? So I wanted to grab that, but see, now I can just pull it off from there. All right, so that brings me, thus the reason I needed this chunky yarn, to the nitty naughty. I have two sizes. This one does a yard. This one does 2 yards. And it is another winding tool. And this is how we make a hank of yarn so that we can take it off the bobbins, so we can set the twist, so that we can store it. A hank is a good way to store it. And again, I just tied it on, just to hold it in place, and then it's going back and forth, making the wraps. And the measurement of it is how long the wrap is around this. And a nitty knotty is a fabulous tool. Now, if you don't have a nitty knotty, you really can wrap this around the back of a chair. Anything to do to wrap around something and then tie off sections so that when you take it off, whatever you wrapped it around, person's hands, you can have your friend sit there like that. Whoops, dropping everything. Sit here like this, and you can wrap around their hands. That's how you can take it off a hank. If you need to wrap it in, roll it into a ball after it's been on a hank. We see it in some of the old movies, but there's the nitty knotty. So once you have it on the nitty knotty, you will want to tie off sections before you take it off the nitty knotty. Otherwise, you just have this big bunch of loops and a mess. So I see one of the questions that come up quite a bit about nitty knotties. Do I set the twist on? Do I leave it on the nitty knotty and set the twist? Preferably, I think most people find taking it off the nitty knotty works. If your nitty knotty is made from wood, you don't necessarily want to be submerging that in a bath of water if you're doing a soaking method. So you tie it off as much as need be. I usually, especially on the big one, use 4 ties. On the small one, I may just do 3. If I'm doing extremely fine spinning, lace weight type spinning, I may put more. When you tie around it, you want to keep it loose, not too tight, because remember, a lot of the fibers will fluff up and you don't want to constrict. If you're wanting to set the twist while it's under tension or any of that, the nitty knotty isn't the place to do it. You can weight it if you so choose by hanging something from it. The nitty knotty, I do not believe, even if you have the PVC pipe ones that you can make, the nitty knotty is not really designed to set the twist, although I'm sure you could steam it while it's on it. It is meant to just wrap a hank of yarn so that you can then take it off and do the other things with it. Okay. Again, if you want to leave it on and set the twist, fine. That's your choice. But if it is made from a wood product, it's probably not the best thing to be getting it wet or steamed all the time. It can cause the wood to expand and contract, and that's probably not going to help with the longevity of the wood. So that's a way to get a hank. Now, I've shown you how to wind a ball, and I've shown you how to wind a hank. But what happens if you already have the hank and you want to wind it into a ball and you don't have somebody, again, with a set of hands to hold the hank in place while you wind the ball? Whether you're winding the ball with a ball winder or winding the ball in a granny ball, the standard old-fashioned just wrap it in a ball, you need something to hold the hank open. And that comes into the category of a swift. And swifts come in a couple different forms. I've had one sitting here in the background through most of my videos. And I'll see if I can bring this in. That's why I wanted to bring the small wheel. Let me just move this wheel out of the way for a moment and bring this wheel in. So this is a swift. And in my case, the swift can be adjustable. So I can adjust the width of the arms. The thing I can also do with the swift is I can actually, because my husband modified this one for me, he put a crank on the back. So in this swift, I can actually take the yarn off the bobbin by cranking it onto my swift. So he made a modification of a swift that we ended up picking up secondhand. He made a modification. He put a crank on it so that I can actually wind it off. Now, the Swift is not full 2 yards. So what I do is I will measure around the outside, and that's how I get my calculations to know how much yarn. So that is one type of Swift. And sometimes you can find some of the old ones that that had a counter in them, and they would click as you'd wind them. And they used to call them weasels. That's another name for that type of Swift. They'd call them a weasel. And the song, the old nursery rhyme song, you know,
Pop goes the weasel.
I know, I'm forgetting.
Pop goes the weasel.
Snap goes the weasel, I think is what it says.
Pop
Snap
goes the weasel.
Comes from that. Every time it would go around, it would snap so you could hear it and count. It was a counter, so you could count your yardage. So that's one type. The other type of Swift, and this is a big wooden one, but you can get them small and metal, but this is called an umbrella Swift. And this clamps on a table, and I'm going to try not to hit and knock over everything, but it's called an umbrella Swift because look, it expands out, and you can choose the width simply by where you place the gadget that holds here. There we go. Words. But it's an umbrella Swift. So this is a really wonderful thing when you are trying to take a hank of yarn, especially a hank that has a large amount of yardage on it. You can put it on there. It expands and contracts so that the different size of hank can fit on it. You can hook that up on the table. You can hook your ball winder on the table, clamp it on the table next to it, and you can crank off a ball of yarn using an umbrella Swift. So those are also wonderful tools to have. And sometimes when you go into your local yarn store and you buy a hank of yarn from your local yarn store, sometimes they'll offer you the service of turning it into a center pool ball for yourself. Or they'll do it for you so that you have it done. But for your own hand spinning, if it is something that is prohibitive, if again you find yourself not wanting to take up the space or have the cost, you can always just put the hank of yarn around the back of it. An arm, it works really well on the back of a straight back chair, that especially if a chair has arms, because then it holds it from falling all the way down. But you can put it along the back of a chair. You can put it on the arms of your friend, and you can wind off a ball of yarn that way. There are ways to do it, but these are the tools that make it just a little bit more time saving. And sometimes that's what we need. But I'm very fortunate. I can tell my husband, oh, I've pulled out a topic for tomorrow. And it says beyond the spindle and wheel, and I can't find the tool that my daughter made, and because of course we packed it and sent it with her when she went to back into the Peace Corps. And so I looked at him when he came home from work, and I said, so this is the topic I'm doing tomorrow, and I need this tool because I don't have one. And we went downstairs. We went to his stash of lumber wood on the shelf, and I picked out this black walnut. And he says, well, it's not going to be, he was worried it would be too thin. I said, oh, I don't have it because I wanted beads, these little beads, because I love the way it feels in my hand. It helps massage my hand. And he said, well, if I put beads, it's going to get really skinny. I said, unless you want it flat. And I said, oh, I have no problem with you leaving it flat on one side. That's great. Then he finished turning it, and he came back and he handed it to me, and I said, doesn't feel quite right. I think this end needs to be a little smaller because the balance isn't quite right. I need this end to be a little bit lighter weight, take off some more material, because then the balance will feel better in my hand. And so he went back downstairs and he made the adjustments and he put some finish on it. I love the smell of cedar. And so I made him up a batch of cedar and beeswax wax. So cedar oil and beeswax that he uses as one of the finishes on a number of the bowls and woodworking pieces. So it's always nice when you do have somebody who will make something for you. And I'm very fortunate to have my husband, but there are woodworkers out there. There are people out there that you might be able to find, that you might be able to barter in order to help make some of these tools, some of this stuff that you see. My husband and I, it's our stress relief. When we met skiing. We don't ski anymore. He used to fish. He loved to fish, but I just never could get into fishing. And health-wise, both of us have had health issues, but health-wise, we have found it's easier if I stay in more climate-controlled environments. So one of the things, though, for us is that we both have developed over the years these hobbies that we enjoy doing. It helps his stress to have these hobbies. But one of the things that I know about being married to now a woodworker is that just like with us spinners, we sometimes lose our mojo because we feel like we're accumulating too much. We lose the idea of what am I going to spin next? What am I going to make next? He loved coming home from, it was a stressful day yesterday, and the ability to come home and make this for me actually really helped his stress level. It helped him relax and wind down for the evening. So if you do not have a built-in woodworker in your home, look in your local area and see if you can find craftspeople, other type of craftspeople. One of the comments in talking yesterday, I was talking about the guilds and stuff. There are other guilds. Guilds are wonderful. Groups are wonderful. They usually don't have a big problem if you yourself are just interested in what they're doing, but may not actually participate. Join a guild, meet some other crafters, participate in a crafting community, because I find that people who make things love being challenged to make something like this. And oftentimes just the enjoyment of trying to make something new for you will offset some of the cost it might be to pay for it to be done. A lot of times we look at their final beautiful museum pieces and we're like, oh, I could never afford to have somebody make something for me. But a lot of craftspeople have the things that they have to sell and the things that they have that they're doing as a passion. And sometimes working with another artisan to try to create a tool that they need, it may not be as cost prohibitive as you think it might. Otherwise, get some sandpaper and a stick and start a dowel, a stick from the garden, and just start sanding. And eventually you'll get yourself a stick that you can wind a ball of yarn on. So that's my message for today. I hope that you've had a wonderful time unwinding with vibrant fabric with me. I hope that some of this has been interesting, if not useful. And I hope to see you again tomorrow. Until then, happy spinning.